Hi, welcome to my July wrap-up video. I read 11 books in July. I'm filming this, the last day of the month. I don't think I'm going to finish anything else today, so it's safe to do, I think. But I did the wrap-up a little bit differently this month. I hope you enjoy it. I kind of vlogged everything as I finished it so that kind of the ideas would be a bit more fresh in my head. I find usually when I do these wrap-ups that by the end of the month, I kind of forget the details of the books that I read at the beginning of the month. So I'm trying something new, a different approach, kind of vlog style maybe. Let me know if you like this format. I'll keep doing it in the future. So without any further ado, I'll go right into the video. I just read the book When You Get the Chance by Tom Ryan and Robin Stevenson. This was a young adult novel about two teenagers who are cousins, one from BC, one from Nova Scotia, who are basically trying to get to Pride in Toronto. This was a great kind of end of Pride Month read for me. I live in Halifax, where one of the main characters is from, so it was interesting kind of seeing that perspective. There was lots of references to life in Halifax, so I thought that was really interesting. But overall, I didn't like this book. It was, I don't know, it wasn't for me. This is the first young adult book I've read in a long time, and the genre certainly evolved a lot since I was a teenager. But that being said, there wasn't enough really depth to this story for me. It felt very not preachy, but it seemed more like an educational outing. There was lots of times when characters would stop and kind of explain some aspect of their lives or queer life. And I thought that's good for some people, but the kind of person who's going to pick up this book doesn't need an explainer of what bisexuality is or non-binary identity or what like butch means. So I thought it wasn't a hit for me. The adventure was kind of basic. I was hoping it was more going to be like a cross-country thing, but it turned out to be like a 2-hour journey. And I didn't feel like these characters spoke like real teenagers at all. Every single character at some point referred to their parents as their folks, which I've never heard in my life, in real life, but it's definitely a trope in YA books. So this was a skip for me. I'm glad that there's some queer Canadian young adult content out there. It just feels like kind of the world of literature and what kids are reading specifically is more advanced than this. So that is When You Get the Chance by Tom Ryan and Robin Stevenson. I just finished reading Conversations with Friends by Sally Rooney. It was so good. I am converted. I didn't like Normal People by Sally Rooney at all when I read it a few years ago. But this one was incredible. There was such an intimacy in the characters and in the thoughts, and I found all four protagonists to be so relatable in different ways. It was queer. It was amazing. The character, Melissa, she's kind of the least developed in the whole book, but I don't know, I was really drawn to her. Especially the email she sends towards the end of the book. I was obsessed with it. I screamed. I thought that was like the best thing I've ever read, provided with the whole context of the novel, of course, but that email was amazing in like the most horrific way. I loved it so much. But yeah, I found that the way that the characters thought and interacted with each other was really unique, really well developed. There was so much detail in such sparse sentences. Obviously, this is why people love Sally Rooney. I'm just behind. I can't even really remember the details of what I didn't like about Normal People. I think I need to give it another chance. But yeah, Conversations with Friends was incredible. I'm so excited to read her new book that comes out in a couple months. And I'm excited for the TV series to come out next year too. That's going to be great. Anyway, I'm sorry to all the Sally Rooney fans out there. I was wrong. I'm converted. I'll see you at the bookstore in the fall. So we're halfway through the month. It's the end of the day on the 14th of July. So about halfway, and this is my worst reading month yet so far this year. I'm still not sure how I feel about that. I feel like I was so excited at the beginning of the month, and I still feel like I'm so excited to read so many of these books that I have, but I don't know, I've just been busy, hasn't been much time. It's okay. I'm excited to keep reading. If I double what I've read so far, it's still going to be my worst month yet, but whatever. We'll get through it. I'm going to keep reading. I just finished The Anthropocene Reviewed by John Green. This is a collection of essays, and it's kind of a review of different aspects of kind of life on Earth and what we're living through right now as a society. I really liked this. This is so cute. It was a charming little book. I used to be a big John Green fan. I read all of his books as they came out. I watched all the Vlogbrothers videos every week. And this was such a nice, familiar return. Like, John Green has such a specific voice to his stories, and it felt so comforting to return to that. And kind of be reacquainted with him, and not through a character, through him directly telling these essays. There's a lot of memoir in these essays. He reviews random things like this chapter, The Penguins of Madagascar, which is a movie, Indianapolis, where he lives. He just, CNN, he just reviews random things. And it was really nice. He incorporated so many personal stories, so much information. Like, this was a very informative book. I learned so many fun facts. But it was really touching. I didn't expect it to be kind of so relevant. It talks a lot about COVID and kind of applying COVID to different aspects of the world, and I didn't expect that from this book. But yeah, this was really nice. I'm really glad I read this. It definitely felt like it kind of dragged on a bit. There was a lot of essays in here, but this was the perfect book to kind of pick up, read one or two, and then put it down again. I wouldn't recommend reading it all at once like I did, but, you know, to each their own. But yeah, this was a really fun one. So that was The Anthropocene Reviewed by John Green. I just finished Exciting Times by Natasha Dolan. This is a really great book. Very Sally Rooney. This is about a girl named Ava who's, I think, 22, 23 years old in this book. She travels to Hong Kong to teach English. There she meets Julian. It becomes kind of like a friends with benefits thing with him. She moves into his apartment. Then he leaves to go to London for an extended stay where while he's away, she meets Edith. And they start a romance, and it's kind of about the conflict between the three of them. Kind of a love triangle, kind of not. I loved this book. The writing was so witty, so insightful. There were so many passages where I was like, oh my god, Natasha Dolan understands me. But then she'd go on and elaborate in the passages talking about how everyone thinks that things are so relatable because we all think we're so original and exciting and unique, but really we're all the same. So this one hit hard, but I loved it so much. And the characters were so charming. The writing was so charming. I really liked it. Very Sally Rooney. I describe it as Sally Rooney for Phoebe Bridgers fans. It's a bit more queer, a bit more sad, but so insightful. I really, really loved this book. Yeah, Natasha Dolan is a really interesting writer. I'm excited to see what she comes out with next. I loved in the acknowledgments too, she thanked socialism. I'm going to find the quote because it was really, it was like the cherry on top of this book. Here. It's at the end of the acknowledgments. It is. I had a full-time teaching job when I wrote Exciting Times, but I earned enough money to pay rent and I didn't have any caregiving responsibilities. It's much harder to write without these conditions in place. Everyone deserves to write books if they want to. That will never be possible in a world where billionaires exist, but it's possible in a humane one. Thank you to everyone who's working and organizing to get us there. Like, yes, we stand. Anyway, Exciting Times by Dolan. Really good. Last night I read Assembly by Natasha Brown. It is a very short book. I read it in like 45 minutes. It's all about a black woman who lives in the UK and her relationship with her boyfriend, who is a white man. He comes from some generational wealth. She's a very successful in her career. And it's kind of about the differences between the two of them, how capitalism plays into that, how race plays into that. It was incredible. It was an incredible book. It all revolves around kind of this one event that they're preparing for, involving his parents, and kind of her coming to terms at the same time with some health issues that she's been experiencing. This is absolutely worth the read. The publisher, Hachette, sent it to me to review. It comes out in North America in September, but it's already out in the UK, so you can find a copy if you know where to look. I thought it was incredible. There was one section in particular where she talks about how kind of she's putting all of this work in for her taxes to pay for the mistakes of her boyfriend's ancestors, and kind of how slavery was resolved by the government basically buying out slave owners, and how marginalized people, their taxes are still paying for, and by extension their labor is still paying for the actions that were taken against them. Yeah, it was a really impactful passage. There's a few other impactful passages as well. This book is absolutely worth the read. Check it out. Oh my god. That's Assembly by Natasha Brown. I just finished The Guncle by Stephen Rowley. It was so cute. This was such a charming little book. It's all about Patrick, who is a middle-aged gay man. He's a retired actor, retired. He was on a successful sitcom that ran for many seasons, and since it ended, he's basically been living by himself in Palm Springs. And basically, he needs to take in his brother's kids because their mother passed away, and their father needs to go into rehab. So it's all about him kind of adjusting to life with a 6-year-old and a 9-year-old. And it was so cute. It was a book that was charming and funny, but at the same time actually went really in depth about grief, and really explored Patrick's history with grief and how he had a partner who passed away. And there's a bit of a romance element to the book as well, so that was really cute. It wasn't anything revolutionary. There was no big twists or reveals. Everything happened exactly as you would expect something to happen in this kind of book. But it was fine. It was a great summer read. So cute. Yeah, and I really enjoyed it. That was The Guncle. I just read Filthy Animals by Brandon Taylor. This book was a collection of short stories. A lot of them are interconnected. It kind of takes place over, I think, a weekend, mostly in Madison, Wisconsin. And it follows a bunch of different characters. I really enjoyed this one. Brandon Taylor is such a beautiful writer. He's so skilled at capturing the nuance of people's behaviors and their interactions with each other. I thought that the book had enough connections and brought the same characters back often enough that it kind of felt like a novel, and it had that kind of commitment and willingness to invest in the book. more than a regular collection of short stories would. I also really liked how the stories that weren't connected were told, and they were so well done, all of them. It took me a little bit. The first couple of stories started to feel a bit repetitive. It was the same kind of internal struggles and dialogue that a lot of the characters had, but once you pass the second half of the book, the stories got a lot more interesting. Especially the title story, Filthy Animals. Like, what the heck was going on there? It was basically about a violent hate crime, and then there was other books. Anne of Cleves was another short story that I was really impressed with. It was about kind of a woman who's starting to date another woman and is kind of worried about how people in her life will perceive that. And there's this kind of recurring theme of intrinsic, kind of animalistic urges and tendencies and needs in all of these protagonists and all of these stories. And I just thought it was so well done, so well connected, not just plot-wise, but also thematically. So yeah, Filthy Animals by Brandon Taylor is definitely worth checking out. I highly recommend it. I just read Impostor Syndrome by Kathy Wang. This one is a kind of spy thriller-ish. It's about a Russian spy who becomes the COO of a major tech company, think like Google, called Tangerine. And she's kind of feeding information back to Russia, or Russia's asking her for information. But it's kind of about her hesitancy to do that. It's all like her thought process is, yes, Russia told me to go to Silicon Valley, but I made my name for myself. I worked myself to get to this position that I'm in. I don't want to risk it. At the same time, it's about this entry-level employee who comes across some information, starts to be a bit on to Julia, and kind of about the cat and mouse between the two of them. At least that's how it was marketed. It wasn't really much of anything. It didn't seem to know what it was at all. There wasn't really that much cat and mouse between them. Some people have blurbed this as satire. I'm not really sure if I'd call it satire. A bit of a commentary on Silicon Valley culture, maybe, but definitely not satirical. The espionage aspect of it all didn't seem very well fleshed out. And there were no stakes. The stakes didn't matter in the end. Nothing mattered. So, this wasn't a hit for me. I didn't love it. The writing was good. I enjoy Kathy Wang's writing. This is kind of the same issue I had with Family Trust, her first book. It wasn't that the book itself was bad. It was that the marketing of the book and the publicity of the book didn't line up with what the book actually was. So, yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe it's time to switch up publishers, Kathy Wang. Maybe it's time to get your book marketed differently. Anyway, Impostor Syndrome was fun overall. I didn't have a terrible time reading it. It wasn't hard for me to get through. It just didn't live up to the promise of the blurbs and the concept and all of that. So, that's Impostor Syndrome. Just finished reading Transit by Rachel Cusk. This is the second book in the Outline trilogy. This one, if you're not familiar, the Outline trilogy is about this unnamed or very rarely named protagonist. We don't know really anything about her. And each chapter in the first book and then this book as well follows a different conversation with a different person she meets. The first one all centered around a trip to Greece that she takes. This one is all about her moving to London after a divorce with her two sons, and it's kind of framed around her renovating her new house that she just bought. I enjoyed this one. I didn't like it as much as the first one. I found the first one a lot more coherent. Framing it around a trip made it really easy to flow. This one, it was kind of hard to tell where it was going. Was it going to end when the house renovations were complete? Was it going to end somewhere else? I wasn't sure. But I did find the conversations themselves more interesting in this one. How it's kind of set up is each chapter starts, like the first 2 or 3 pages, kind of set up the person. They're getting to know each other, why they're meeting, whether it's talking about, oh, I'm meeting with this person because they're my cousin, or I'm meeting with this person because we're doing a book event together. Stuff like that. Just kind of setting the plot up. And then the rest of the chapter, like maybe 20, 30 pages, is basically this narrator telling us this character's life story and what she learned from this conversation that she had with them. And there's very rarely any personal information about the protagonist in the book or in these discussions. There's very rarely any personal information about the protagonist in these discussions or in these chapters. It's very emotional. The protagonist is definitely at a crossroads in her life. That's probably why it's called Transit. She feels very kind of uprooted, not sure where she's going to land. The renovation of the house plays into that. The downstairs neighbors that keep terrorizing her for like no reason. They're just horrible people. That's a big part of this book as well. It was an interesting one. I liked that we learned more about her family, her son specifically, in this book. But we really didn't learn more about her. I feel like I knew her better from the first one than I did from this one. But kind of the questions she asks and how she analyzes the information about the people around her is the only glimpses we get into who she is. And I think it's a really interesting way to tell a story. It's a really interesting character study. It's a series of character studies, basically. There's really barely any plot. Although there is a bit more plot in this one than the last one, because is the home renovation going to go off smoothly? Who knows? But it's definitely not... There's not really many stakes. There's not much plot. There's not really much of anything. You don't read Rachel Cusk for the plot. You read her for the vibes. And the vibes are definitely there in this one. This one was depressing. This one was full of turmoil. It's all about all of these characters and the crossroads they reach in their lives and the turmoil they face and where they come from and where they're going and the struggles they've had along the way. It's really interesting, but it's definitely not for everyone. This isn't going to grab your attention. You need to kind of want to keep going on your own. There's not a plot propelling you forward. So that's Transit by Rachel Cusk. I really enjoy it. I'm excited to read the last one, which is called Kudos. And I'm interested to see how she finishes off this trilogy. So that's it. That's everything I read in the month of July. I didn't mention 2 books here. Chain of Gold by Cassandra Clare and then The Lost Book of the White by Cassandra Clare and Wesley Chu. These are both Shadowhunters books. I am vlogging all of the Shadowhunters series separately, so those details will be in that video that's just coming out soon because I only have one left. So look for that. I'll give you a little hint. Neither of these were really a hit for me, but that's okay. You can't win all of them. So anyway, thanks so much for watching this video. Let me know if you like this format, this kind of month-long book diary. Maybe I'll keep doing it in the next few months and see how it goes. Kind of refine the format a little bit. Anyway, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like the video if you liked it, and I will see you in the next video real soon.